This video is brought to you by Boxu. Pop on over the link in the description and use the code Gaijin20 to get a massive 20% off a box of traditional treats you won't find outside of Japan. Hey everyone, Gaijin Goombah here. You know, it's kinda weird. Out of all the different Monster Hunter Rise monsters that take inspiration from Japanese yokai folklore, Goss Harag was surprisingly most requested word of mouth. Like, between my friends, other YouTubers, and folks that I talk to over on my Twitter and Twitch, every time I mention an eventual video on this ice-cold Yeti bear, all I ever seem to hear is, "My boy." And it's especially weird to me because Goss Harag's yokai origin feels like one of the biggest no-brainers out of the bunch. Not because it's so simple, but rather because the one-on-one connections with it are just so uncomplicated. I mean, for crying out loud, the director of the game straight up showed us what Goss Harag was going to be based on back in early January of this year.
Well, I mean, sure it may seem obvious to you, but not everybody out here is a colossal weeb. Nor is every fan of Monster Hunter absolutely dedicated to knowing every little shred of detail when it comes to the design choices of each of the series' monsters. Goss Harag's got a lot of rightful popularity based on its chunky bear-like visage, and let's be real here, it would be a great snuggle buddy.
Alright, fair, but look, all I'm saying is for anyone who has even a limited understanding of Japanese folklore, it should be pretty obvious that the Goss Harag is modeled in its entirety from the Namahage. I mean, to be honest, this guy's been in a lot of popular Japanese-oriented games as of late. From Koei Tecmo's souls like Nioh and Nioh 2, to even rhythm games like Taiko no Tatsujin. I figured this knife-wielding, straw-coat-wearing Oni would be a bit more known in Rise. That's like going into this game eating a buff meal and not knowing what dango is.
And there you go again, you weeb. I'm sure there actually were a lot of people who didn't know what dango were. But you know who might be able to introduce them to it in real life? Our sponsor, Boxu.
Not the smoothest transition, but I'll take it. And Little G is absolutely right. Unlike a lot of other subscription boxes that send over mainstream snacks from Japan, Boxu offers treats created by generations of families that you can't find outside the prefectures that made them their specialty. In fact, within the cultural booklet that comes in each box, you can actually see exactly which unique snacks acts as a regional specialty and where it comes from. But that's not all. Each booklet has a cultural breakdown of each box's theme. For example, since the summer season's here, I got the Summer Matsuri box, complemented with snacks that really do take me back to the many festivals that I've experienced. Kakigori shaved ice gummies, a staple Matsuri food, Mochan Dango Mochi, we did say that we would introduce you to dango, and the takoyaki te corn puffs, all of which symbolize the most traditional of Matsuri street food, which you can actually learn about in the cultural booklet as well as some handy vocabulary words related to the festival season. So if you want to get started with a taste of all seasons in Japan, hit up that link in the description and use the code Gaijin20 to get a whopping 20% off your first box. Shipping to the US is free, and after your Seasons of Japan box, a brand new themed box arrives every month. So come take a literal bite out of Japan's culture.
And with that out of the way, let's get back to the Goss Harag, because I am still really curious about how the connections between it and the Namahage are so obvious.
So what do we know about Goss Harag and Rise? Well, let's have a look at its opening cinematic. So right out the gate, despite what the English translation says, the audio calls the Goss Harag a straight up Oni, twice. Not to mention that everybody better run, and for good reason, as the Goss Harag can forge long curved knives from its frosty breath directly onto its arms, which it apparently uses to excise something in a hunt? A choice of words considering to excise means to remove something surgically. Why not just say slice or something? And finally, we're treated with the notion that nothing slips from the Goss Harag's senses.
A fur-covered chunky humanoid that hears all living in the tundra? Starting to sound a little like Santa Claus.
Close, but when it comes to the Namahage, think more Krampus. In the city of Oga in Akita Prefecture, during the first full moon of the year, known as Koshogatsu, a group of men don Mino straw coats, grab KOK pails and Deba Bolcho knives, place massive terrifying oni masks on their face, and go door to door in packs of 2, one of red and one of blue, roaring out, "Warikoi neka?" Or, "Are there any bad kids around?" Literally hunting for lazy, spoiled, and otherwise rotten children to kidnap. A creature and event created in a very similar vein as Krampus, a boogeyman of sorts to scare kids straight. Though whereas European kids never did get scared crapless from seeing the Krampus for themselves, the kids of Oga do every year. And the only thing that keeps the Namahage at bay are the parents who offer sake and mochi to placate the oni. Though it's also said that when the Namahage visits newlyweds, the couple have to put up proper attire and prepare an entire meal for the oni, all the while telling the Namahage all the transgressions that they're guilty of during the course of their first year of marriage.
Yeah, imagine prepping a slow roast and putting on your Sunday best because these guys were knocking on your door armed with knives and an overabundance of doubt.
And the Namahage don't forget. They carry a ledger filled with notes from parents about how their kids behaved or misbehaved, and when the next year comes around, there isn't a single lie that these kids could tell to keep them safe.
Huh, I guess you weren't kidding. That really is verbatim what we see with the Goss Harag. From snow-capped mountains, the two hunt for their own kinds of prey, whether it be bad kids or goat moose. The ice-blown blade from the Goss Harag into its hands, as well as the various weapons you make from the Goss Harag's parts, absolutely resembles the Deba Bolcho knives that the Namahage carry around. Not to mention the Goss Harag's jagged and hardened face looks identical to the Namahage mask with her jagged teeth and blunted horns. And even the specific sentence of, "the beast hears all, returns irate," is no different than the Namahage hearing all about the bad behavior of kids or couples and then coming back the next year terrifyingly angry and scaring the crap out of said folks. But I do gotta ask, what about the names? Like, what does the name Namahage have to do with the name Goss Harag?
Well, the Namahage's name itself comes from an older phrase that the creatures would howl at kids. "Namomi ga hagetaka?" Meaning, "have your blisters peeled yet?" Sounds gross, but it comes from the idea that lazy kids who did nothing all day would sit by the fire for so long that their skin would blister. And the knives that the Namahage carry around, yeah, those are specifically for cutting and peeling off those blisters and getting those kids back to work. That's why the Goss Harag's intro talks about excising. It's a reference to the Namahage excising these kids' blisters and getting them back to work. So from the Akita dialect's verb namomihagi, meaning to peel blisters, came the name Namahage. But what does that have to do with the Goss Harag's name? Well, consider its Japanese iteration, Goshahagi. I think it's pretty obvious that the English name is just a mild corruption of the Japanese one. Goshahagi, Goss Harag. But there's a hidden meaning within the name that absolutely connects with the Namahage. In the northern part of Japan, there is a dialect verb for getting angry called goshagu, which is something that Goss Harag does on a regular basis when you fight it, changing its form from blue to red every single time it enrages and pulls out its curved ice knives.
Oh, like the red and blue Namahage.
Right. So based on that and the previously discussed word hagi, we essentially have a monster hunter monster whose name means enraged peeler in northern Japanese dialect, similar to Namomihagi, which was Namahage's original name.
But there's still one big thing lacking when it comes to the connection between the Goss Harag and the Namahage. Kids. The point of the Namahage seems to revolve exclusively around bad kids, where the Goss Harag seems to just be an ice-spewing yeti that hunts prey and territory like any other monster. Plus, so many of the parts you collect from the monster, and all of the weapons and gear you make from them, have more or less generic descriptions about them.
Now that one was a bit of a dig. After all, there are plenty of weapons, pieces of armor, and a dozen monster parts that denotes the Goss Harag's connection with Namahage in terms of its demonic aura, symbolizing its oni-like nature, or the Goss Harag's cold-repelling fur, which obviously references the Namahage's Mino straw coat. And of course, there's the aforementioned Goss Harag weapons that look strikingly similar to the various blades that they carry around. But there's two blink and you'll miss it references to the Goss Harag scaring children found in its parts description. Firstly, the block of ice plus states that any blade or gauntlet made from this ice is sure to freeze children in terror, and the Goss Harag horn entry states lumpy blue horns of a Goss Harag. For some reason, they tend to scare children. I'm sure for a lot of players, these entries may have seemed really out of place, but make no mistake, we know exactly why these horns and blades scared the crap out of kids. But I hope you don't think too ill will of Namahage. Safe to say, parents sure get a kick out of having them around to scare kids straight, and originally Namahage were servants of Kami, more benevolent Oni than anything. And Namahage do more than just scare. In fact, it's a pretty common place to see them rocking out on taiko drums in Oga during the Koshogatsu season. And speaking of taiko, I finally got my electric taiko 1 shipped from Japan and officially started Taiko Tuesday streams the way I've been dying to have them. Practicing traditional pieces and playing along to fan shows and music, not only with said drum, but also other traditional instruments too, like chapa and shinobue. So, if you want to come by and see my musical second love live on stream, be sure to swing by every Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday at 7 p.m. US Central at twitch.tv/Gaijin Goombah. Also, a big thank you to Boxu for sponsoring this video. Again, be sure to check out the link in the description and use that code Gaijin20 to get that massive 20% off your traditional Japanese sweets. Aside from the aforementioned Taiko Tuesday stream, I got a brand new video over on the Gaijin Perspective channel talking about how the heavily memed Uzaki-chan wa Sobitai anime is likely the most relatable slice of life anime you're ever going to see. And if you enjoy learning about Japan and world cultures through your favorite games and anime, be sure to sub up, get notified, and keep an eye out for our bi-weekly uploads every weekend. But until next time everyone, this is Gaijin Goombah, signing out.